All right, everyone. Thank you again for joining this new episode of Campfire. I have a great privilege to receive today a student, graduate, and now employed in tech, Seth Faerber. So actually, I hope I didn't mispronounce your last name.
That was right. Yeah, you got it.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah,
I meant to ask you earlier and I forgot, but I'm glad I
yeah.
did it right. So if you're joining, you know the deal. This is a live webcast. Seth and I are going to go over his experience from where did he learn, what did he learn, how did he get into tech, and then how did his job hunting phase work or not work, and how did that lead him to his first position as a software engineer. You can ask your questions if you're listening to us on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. There's a chat window somewhere, even on your phone. We will see your questions right here in the chat window. So don't hesitate to do that. You can also join Seth and I with your microphone and camera on, and we actually can bring you onto the floor and ask your questions that way. It's a fun way to interact with us. If you want to do that, you're more than welcome to do it. You'll be broadcasted live as well. All right. With that being said, let's get started. Seth, would you mind introducing yourself briefly? Where are you right now? What do you do? Where do you live? And then we'll get started in the questions that everybody has in mind.
Fantastic. Well, I'm actually really grateful that you brought me on here, Ludo. I'm very grateful for Nucamp and everything that you guys have done for me. I'm very thankful. So thank you. I'm actually here in Franklin, Tennessee. At work actually in the Ramsey building out here. Yeah, so been here in Middle Tennessee for a little while. Yeah, now I'm a software engineer level one, which is great, and it's a wonderful role. It's really overwhelming, but also really amazing. So
Let's start with that. Actually, you're at work in the Ramsey building. I understand that Dave Ramsey is a big name in Kentucky. Maybe you want to say a few things about what he's doing. Say a few things about the
sure.
company and what you do over there, and then we'll go back in time and see how you got there.
Sure, absolutely. So, Dave Ramsey started as a radio show. It's a talk radio show where, well, it actually started more as a curriculum to help people get out of debt and gain financial freedom over their lives. And now it's a nationally broadcast radio show. Along with that, so much more, so much more. There are books and curriculum. I think our high school curriculum is in something. It has been in about 50% of all the high schools in the United States. So
Really, that's
yeah,
huge.
so really helping people gain control over their finances and giving them financial freedom and hope is what we do. So
And so you said that you're a software engineer level one. Tell
mhm.
us a little bit about what does that mean? What do you do every day? Which languages do you use? And I know it's a little bit different from what you learned at New Camp.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm actually working daily right now. I'm getting to learn the stack. It's all in Ruby and Ruby on Rails. I don't touch JavaScript or the MERN stack at all, which is really surprising. But it's really great. There's a high level for learning. There's a high understanding that coming in as an engineer one that you're going to be learning a lot. What I do that's different from probably a lot of the positions that I was looking at. There's a bigger focus on understanding the whole stack and working with a team to come up with solutions rather than sort of just designing a page a day
Mhm.
or designing marketing and doing kind of the same thing every day. We're more like looking at how can we offer unique solutions to people and contributing to the process of building that. It's a great process.
That's great. Very collaborative. I
Yeah.
can tell. All right, let's say hi to folks joining us today. Hey, Brandon. Um, thanks for having you. Thanks for having you here. These are really great. I think it's a conversation that's happening on LinkedIn, but we've missed the beginning of it somehow. Um, Alan, great to see you here. Michael, great to see you here as well. Code Thin as well. and Chris, who's just started with Nucamp. Awesome. Chip, not Chris. So let's go back. Now that we know that you're software engineer level 1, let's go back in time. Let's talk about your primary education. What did you learn in school, and go from there into your first job. If you don't mind actually sharing with us a little bit of that, that'll be super interesting.
Absolutely. So I got out of high school and kind of couldn't really decide what I wanted to do. I enjoyed drawing, and so I thought, well, I would like to do something with art, maybe. But I thought, well, I'll do something practical with art. So I actually have an associate's degree in graphic design and animation. So I was interested in tech, interested in that, but just decided, well, for my bachelor's degree, I just want to do the pure art form. So I have a bachelor's degree in fine arts and painting. And I was really drawn to the conceptual, the world of ideas and concepts that was involved in painting. I'm still very interested in that, but don't get to do it quite as often as I'd like. After
Do
that,
you, do you are you a painter? Do you paint still?
yes, yeah, I do. I do.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, I love to paint.
Anything we can
Uh,
look at?
sure, if you want to check out sethpaintings.com.
We will do. Absolutely. Do you sell anything?
No, not really.
No.
A little here and there. A little here and there.
Sethpainting.com.
It's plural,
Paintings. Yeah,
sethpaintings.com.
I got it.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's the wrong one. You're not painting and carpentry, are you?
No, Seth Paintings, plural. Didn't pick up
Okay.
carpentry in art school. Yeah, it was a really
I'll have to look for it. Sethpaintings.com.
sure. I wonder if maybe I can
There you
drop
go.
it
Yeah,
real
I
quick.
found it. Okay, let me paste it
Perfect.
here.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
sorry. So you are an artist.
Yep.
You are a creative mind. You're
I'm a
painting.
creative. That's right.
And so, but then what was your first? I mean, what was your career at first?
Right. At first, it was sales. I got into sales. I was got a job at Sprint, which is now defunct,
Hmm.
but selling cell phones, and I got into insurance, selling insurance for a little while, and then I started working with a sales company to sell portable buildings, and it was a very interesting process and learning that, and eventually moved into management. And everything I loved about my job had to do with learning concepts and then
Hmm.
teaching other people how to do them. And my wife and I were having our second child at the time, and the schedule was just really crazy. It was, 60, 70 hours a week, and I was traveling 80% of the time. It just wasn't good for a long-term fit for my family, and I really wanted to do work that mattered. So I talked to a friend of mine who had just jumped into teaching, and since I loved everything about learning ideas and teaching them to my salesmen, building curriculum for my salesmen, I thought, well, maybe this would be a good fit for me for a short time. While my kids are little, I can be a teacher, and we'll think about what to do after that.
Yeah.
So got into teaching, and I thought it was only going to be 2 or 3 years teaching, but it ended up being 8 years. So
8 years
after
of
eight,
teaching.
eight,
What were you teaching? Were you
yeah,
teaching
so I
art
taught
or
English actually.
English?
Taught English. There's a lot of overlap with the kind of the conceptual world in art and painting, that poetry and writing, creative
Oh,
writing. They kind of share a lot of that
that's
thing.
great. So an artist teaching kids English for
That's
eight
right.
years while building your own family. Um, and so, what triggered your interest in kind of doing something else? After 8 years of teaching, why did you start looking for something else?
So, my wife and I knew that we would eventually need a way to build a stronger income for ourselves for the future. And I said, well, okay, how am I going to do that? What do I do really well? And how can I turn that into a paycheck? So I started taking personality tests and started researching different career fields. And this common theme of um, software kept coming up. It was also one of the career fields that had a barrier to entry that was low enough for
Mhm.
me to I didn't have to go back and get a master's degree in architecture or industrial design or
Yeah.
something like that. I could I could approach it through a boot camp and be able to enter the field in a relatively short amount of time without having to shell out thousands upon thousands of dollars and years of time. So that's where I started investigating that.
Was there anything else you considered at the time? I mean, it seems I can picture a decision matrix, right? Is
Yeah,
it hard to get in? Do I need a degree? Is it going to be expensive?
yeah.
In that matrix, did you just have code, software engineering, or did you kind of contemplate maybe other possibilities?
I definitely did. In fact, even before this kind of decision, I thought, well, maybe my place is in education. Maybe my permanent place is there. So I actually have a master's degree in educational leadership,
Mm,
which is sort of like what you would do to become a principal of a school or an assistant
mhm.
principal. And I did that very early in my teaching career before I really understood what those roles were about. I'm glad I did it because I learned a lot and I got to use my leadership skills on campus, helping teams and things like that. But ultimately, I realized I didn't want to have to tell people what to do all day. That was not, I don't want to be the guy that says, hey, you showed up 10 minutes late, you know?
Yeah, you can do
Uh,
this, but you cannot do that.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's
yeah,
right. So I thought, what's another career where I can investigate ideas,
yeah,
where I can learn. Ultimately, it came down to software was a field where I could learn, and it was the funniest thing to me when I looked at complaints about web development, people complaining about their careers. There's this constant theme of, oh my gosh, it's like I've never learned enough. It's like
yeah.
you never learn enough. So that sounds amazing.
Well, it's a very it speaks to the creative mind of being. There's a level of curiosity that you have to have. There's a lot of being open to things, different things, new things, and yeah, I can see how it doesn't really jive with being a principal. Right? I don't know how much creativity how much actually your creativity spirit can really flourish being a campus administrator in a way.
Yes.
Um, and we have Krista here as well as I saw George with us. So, so you looked into software development, and then you were set in not going back to getting a degree or going back to college. So you looked at coding boot camps. How did you know that you were going to like it? Like, did you learn online first? Did you do a few tutorials? Like, how did you get your feet wet before making a bigger jump?
So this is where Nucamp comes in.
Okay, all right.
This is the natural introduction. So I actually had no experience with coding at all before I started Nucamp. I had
Oh,
built several websites using WordPress, but just drag and drop kind of sites. Um, I did one that was marginally technical, but it was still I didn't have to know any code to build
mhm.
it. It was sort of a subscription-based
Yeah.
video hosting site, right? So you pay for a
Wix,
membership. Yes,
in all of those websites, it's a lot like drag and drop.
yes.
And then if you get curious, then you get to actually, code a little bit. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I looked at a huge variety of boot camps. I looked at and got pretty seriously looked at two or three of them, and ultimately, what got me interested in New Camp was the Web Fundamentals class.
Hmm.
And I thought, okay, this is a really safe way for me to test this out. I'm only, worst case scenario, if I end up hating this, it's not that expensive. It's not that much time, and it will give me a really good expectation of, what do I need to set aside as far as time in my daily life while I
Yeah.
continue to work full time as a teacher? Is it possible? So it was a great trial run for my family, and it was a great way to test the waters.
I couldn't have said it better. I mean, that's exactly why we have that 4-week introduction bootcamp, is to really give those answers. Like, am I going to learn to code? And am I gonna learn New Camp as well? Like, do I want to learn that way, right? And I want to pause a little bit because there's a few people that are saying hi. Maybe some of them already, but Crystal, is a colleague of yours in a way, former teacher and Nucamp grad.
Yeah.
Irvin. I don't know if you know Irvin, but I don't know. Maybe Irvin knows
Yeah.
you.
Irvin and I have had a few conversations actually, and I think we need to congratulate him. I think he's landed an interview here coming up.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
congratulations, Irvin.
Hey, congrats, Irvin. Well, good luck with the interview. And then Daria, pretty much. I have to say, we have a lot of students who used to be teachers.
Yeah.
And a lot of music teachers, actually. We've written and I've actually interviewed a lot of music teachers who have been talking how much there is a parallel between teaching music or learning music
Mhm.
and learning to code. And I'm guessing teaching English or language or learning a new language is probably also very similar to learning to code. But that's pretty cool. And then we have Droid Genetics trying to get in tech also from the education industry. Chip has an important question to ask. So we're going to actually, so Chip, you want to be careful when you do all caps like that in terms of internet lingo. I would say you're shouting at us. I'm sure you're not, but that's kind of how it looks. But I guess we're going to take that question seriously and answer it now. So what time commitment was it for you to do the web intro? And was it similar for the rest of the full stack program? That's actually a great question.
That is a really great question. I would say the time commitment was, uh, for me, it was the same. I would say that the difficulty ramps up as you go, which it's supposed to. I would say one thing that it was difficult at the time, but it was really good is that Nucamp will not shortchange you on the content. Like you're not getting a mini boot camp. You're getting a full boot camp
Yeah.
in a compressed amount of time. So I spent pretty consistently probably 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. 4 nights a week maybe, and then Saturdays.
Wow. Yeah.
I would try to take one day off just to calm down a little bit,
Yeah. And stay with the
but
family a
I
little bit.
but I needed that, you know,
Yeah.
and my family and you guys were great, Ludo. You guys were great up front of saying, "Hey, your family is going to need to commit to this as well," and
Yeah.
it was great.
Yes, we have those few lessons at the beginning of each bootcamp that says, "Hey, here's a template that you should use with your family and friends. Tell them you're not going to be available that much." Yeah. Um, so I want to ask you a little bit about those first 4 weeks because it's true that it's going up in difficulty, and there's a real shift between the first 2 weeks where you're learning HTML and CSS
Mhm.
and the last 2 weeks when we actually introduced JavaScript and manipulating the DOM.
Yes.
How did that go for you? Like, what was your frame of mind, or how did you feel during the first 2 weeks? And then what was your frame of mind, or how did you feel during the last 2 weeks and at the end of the last 2 weeks? Because there's a
So
real, I mean, it's very different, right? It's
yes,
yeah.
very different. Yeah, with HTML, it's almost like you can just translate it in your head. You're just, you know, this makes total sense. And then when you get into JavaScript, it's like you're trying to speak an alien language. It's like we don't even make sentences the same way now. It's something very strange. It was the lesson on variables. I remember distinctly the lesson on variables, and our instructor. It was on a Saturday that our instructor. It clicked for me. She talked about how a variable is like a box, and
Yeah.
you can put things in the box and take things out of the box, and but the box is still named the same thing, and that still sticks with me to this day. But it was more difficult, but that's where I really found I had a lot of fun. In fact, after that class, I went and programmed a little DOM game that was just um, popping up a little dot on the screen, and you'd click it, and then it would appear somewhere else random, and click it, and you'd try to click it around. It would start a timer. The idea was the timer starts when you start a click, and then the timer stops when you're done clicking it 10 times, and so it would keep a high score. And all of that was just from my 2 weeks in JavaScript. And I even showed my wife. I was like, "Babe, look at
Yeah,
this." I mean, it was
look what I'm
ugly.
doing.
It
Yeah, I
was
know.
ugly, but it was cool how it worked.
Yeah, and it's crazy how, I mean, how much students can take those last two exercises, when we start to manipulate the DOM, and just be like, oh my God, that means I can do this. That means I can do this. And you see a lot of
Yeah.
crazy stuff, but it's really fun to see as well. And yeah, we have Krista here. Yeah, just hating life when the dome hits. All right, so that's pretty cool. So we're gonna. I mean, tell us a little bit about you enrolled in the full stack bootcamp. Tell us about the whole experience, but then you and we really want to talk about what happened after that, because that's where really I think. And I want to thank you. I mean, you prepared a document kind of outlining for me everything that happened after you graduated. So we're going to go through that. But before that, just tell us a little bit about the Nucamp experience, the full stack curriculum, and then we'll dive into after you graduated.
Absolutely. The using, I would say, Bootstrap, when we got into Bootstrap, that was really interesting to see how we can do a lot of design, kind of like a lot of design can be done very quickly using libraries, which is really useful. And that also made a lot of sense. I think probably where everybody seems to kind of choke is when we get into Redux, right? React, I really enjoyed when I was able to understand the idea of building modules and using a module as a way of I think, well, I would say we did our single page application, for
Yeah.
instance. Okay. So going, okay, instead of building a website where I click and then it loads a whole new set of code with a bunch of repeated code and then the next boom, going, okay, what if I just click on something that swaps out just that little piece of the website? That was a fascinating idea, and it just
Yeah.
made sense that you would design something that way. So I think that really came alive for me. I really enjoyed React. Redux was so strange to me, and I think it's strange for everybody. And I think you guys have updated that with
Yes,
hooks.
we
Is that
have.
correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you graduated in 2021, so we were still very deep in Redux. Since we've actually switched most of it to hooks, we still have a little bit of Redux, but the React team actually did a really nice job, along with the Redux team, to make it so much simpler to use. So it's
Yeah.
not as mind-blowing that it used to be. And so you get to enjoy React even more now.
Yeah.
But React is meant to be challenging, because not meant,
Yes.
but for people, and most students are beginners and have very little exposure to coding, that's where everyone is going to be challenged. And that's
Yes.
expected. And you have to, to stay committed and stick along to enjoy the ride, I will say.
And I'll say this too. This is probably one of those side lessons I learned, but it's really, really important, especially now working in engineering. It's knowing that you're always going to have questions. You're always going to be overwhelmed. You're always going to pull up your code first thing in the morning. Even, I have guys who are engineer threes working right next to me, and I'll say, "Hey, can you help me with this thing?" And they go, "Okay, let me look at this for like 5 minutes and figure out what are we doing here? Why is
Yeah.
this?"
Yeah.
And we just go back and forth. It's such a conversational way. There's no way you can know all of it. And so being that I, kept telling myself this is like, you're not getting hired because you know everything. You'll get hired because you're the type of person who can find an answer.
Mhm.
It's like, I may not know the answer, but I'm determined to find it. And that's the guys that I work with. That's what they're like. And thankfully, I was able to learn that skill during the boot camp. So I learned that, hey, even if I don't understand this now, I'm going to press through, because eventually I may need this, or eventually it's going to make sense. Or if I need it to make sense, I'll go back and relearn it.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I have a question for you. So you finished the full stack bootcamp, but given your artistic background, your creative mind, I want to ask you: do you feel like you're more of a front end developer, or you're more of a full stack / back end developer? Like, what did you like the most?
I was really surprised by this. I did not expect to enjoy the back end stuff as much as I did.
Oh,
And
you
in
did?
fact,
Okay, cool.
a lot of the back end, when we did all that back end stuff, I really enjoyed that. And what I found was I enjoyed creating logic
Yeah.
to my project, what I really enjoyed, I did a little side project. I didn't get to finish it during during the boot camp, but I really wanted to finish this thing. And the idea that there is a monstrous amount of data out there, that is huge databases and so much information, and then I could write something to get in there, pull things out, and display them in a way that's useful to someone was just the neatest thing. I'm
Oh,
still
that's
really
cool. So,
excited
so
about that.
you're a true full stack developer, in a sense that you actually enjoy both front end and back end,
Yep.
similarly in a way. That's pretty nice.
Mhm.
So yeah, learn and can solve 1,000 lit code problems. Indeed, that's the goal.
Woo.
So now let's talk about your life after graduation. What? So tell me if I'm wrong, but you attended Nucamp while still teaching, right? That's one of the reasons I
Yes.
think. I mean, I don't need to say it. Can you tell us a little bit about, were you still a teacher while attending Nucamp, and what did you do after graduating?
Absolutely. Yes, I was still a teacher. I timed my entrance date and my exit date to give me the most amount of time in the summer when I was off. So I know this is gonna be a big commitment. So we did not do any big vacations that summer. I put away the time to do that. And
I remember that was the summer. That was last summer, 2021, right? So you graduated in
yes,
September 2021.
that's right. Yep.
That's right.
Yep, and so the timing was school had started up again, I think when we were just getting into the back end course.
Hmm.
So a lot of the really, really heavy lifting, for me anyway, was done during the summer, which was great. I didn't know that would be the case, but it was. But yeah, it was really difficult to balance my job and my learning. And I had to always ask myself, what's gonna matter most in 5 years? 5 years from now, what's gonna matter? And my family, number one. I had to make sure I had time with them during the week. I couldn't completely disappear because my family's going to be there a lot longer than my coding job. Um, and after that, it was like, hey, I'm investing in my future by doing this class. And so there were times where it was really hard, but I had to make some choices of go, okay, I won't be able to spend as much time grading this assignment as I want to, or I can't stay after school for this event because I need to get back. But
Hmm.
it was really prioritizing my future, um, and I'm really glad I did that because here I am.
So you graduated September 2021. Good timing because a new school year started.
Yep.
But you stayed a teacher, right? So you didn't quit. Tell us about your job hunting or job seeking experience right after graduating, because I mean, I know there has been kind of two phases to it, right? One that was quite slow, and you're good. I want you to talk about that first phase where, I mean, not much happened. I understand.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I toward the end of the boot camp, I started to really get a vision for what I wanted to do with my application that I was building, and I didn't get to finish by the end of the boot camp. And so, hey, I couldn't finish, but I really wanted to finish that project. And there were some things that seemed really tempting to me. We learned about using JSON objects. I don't know if we learned about JSON objects but using the database,
Yeah.
using a database. And so I started going, what is this thing called APIs? What are APIs? And so I started looking into what APIs were and open source APIs and finding data sets. And I found a really cool one with the Art Institute of Chicago. They offer a free API into their whole catalog of art. So there's the art thing.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I got really just like a dog on a bone about trying to like figure out how this thing works and how to put it into my app. And so I thought, well, it'd be cool to have a search engine if I could make a little search engine that would search through this art. So
I'm gonna pull
um,
your website. I know it's not finished,
sure,
uh, but I think that's yeah. Please continue. It's just wanting to
yeah,
show folks what you've
sure,
built. Not finished, but still quite interesting. I mean, first off, love to see those big pictures, beautiful art paintings. on the website. But go for it. Tell us what it is about.
Yeah, so this is an idea I had that I thought when I originally built this, I thought, well, I'll take all this open source art, which you can just look for open source art on their website, and then do some t-shirt printing from it, just do a drop ship t-shirt. That was too ambitious of an idea. But what I did do was I thought I want to build a little search engine for their database of art. So if you actually click on categories up there at
Yeah.
the top, you'll see just a really simple way to search art. There's a little search field. You can look for paintings or drawings or sculpture. And all of this was from looking at their documentation they had on their website about how to use their
Wow.
API, and watching videos about how do I grab information from an open source API, and then how do I make it happen when I click a button? How do I send a GET request when I click a button? It was just all these little lessons. Yeah, it's great because I know how to do that, but I think what was really important for me was building confidence. It
Mhm.
took that to go, okay, I have the confidence now that I can teach myself anything. It may take time, it may take some blood, sweat, and tears, but I'm gonna be able to teach myself how to do this, and then I could represent that well to employers. I think before I had finished this, I would have felt probably not so confident in my abilities. Um, for me, my personal step that I needed to take was building something like that. So I wasn't applying very much for the next few months. I was working on that. And then in the spring, I thought, okay, I need to get a job at some point. I don't want to start the next school year teaching. I'm not ready to do that. So in March, I started throwing out applications on LinkedIn. I took you guys up on your offer for a free month of LinkedIn's,
Yeah.
upgraded account, which was great, very helpful. I'm so thankful for that. And started building a routine of applying, but I didn't get much traction at all. I wasn't getting very much traction at all. And it was about 2 months of doing that, and I started to get really discouraged and thought, like, what on earth is going on? I had maybe one interview, and was very surprised that I didn't have more traction than that. So,
Mhm.
um,
So yeah, let me pause here because obviously there's a second phase to that. Um, but what I really, uh, what I'm hearing you say is you gave yourself a challenge of having to do something you didn't know how to do. Uh, first you had a vision for a website that nobody taught you about how to build that type of website. Then you had the vision to grab data that was on the internet, but you didn't know how to get it. You knew it was out there. You knew it was possible, but you've never done it before, or not that API. And really, the process of transforming that vision into reality really gave you a great amount of confidence. And I'm guessing it was a lot of trial and error. Like I'm guessing it was failing 10 times before making it work once, and then potentially
absolutely.
even making it fail again, and then figuring out why did it work when I made it work. But that process really gave you confidence, right? The self-teaching yourself after knowing some of the fundamentals of calling APIs, structuring data, understanding what a JSON object is in the first place, right? So
Yes.
and that's really why I would say any student, any graduate out there you have to work on your project. It's really where all the, not just your learning is coming together, but you said it's where you build confidence. We talk about the imposter syndrome all the time. There's not one live stream where we don't talk about it, but that's how you fight it. That's by seeing how much you can actually learn on your own and how much you can build up knowledge, just by wanting to build up that knowledge. And so now you're talking about how you applied a little bit blindly to hundreds of positions. What was the moment when that changed? When
So
when did you start to be more successful with your application or your approach to finding a job?
There was a very definite, clear before and after line in the sand. I mean, momentum shifted almost immediately. It's really funny, but I had my wife. She works at our church, and she uh, texted me and said, "Hey, the whole team is praying for you today." And I said, "Oh, really? Okay, all right." And I was coding. And then this thought popped into my head, and I said, I think like Nucamp offers this. Career coaching thing
Career
I've heard
coaching. Yeah.
about. I don't know. So, so I got onto Slack and got some messages back and forth to people, and they said, "Yeah, sign up and talk to one of our coaches one on one." And after talking to that coach, um, she was great. She gave me a great amount of time and some really great pointers, and looked at my resume and said, "I think the problem here is your resume." My resume before did not really represent that I was currently a web developer, even though I was currently a web developer. Like I hadn't worked professionally as a web developer,
Mhm.
but that's for me to explain in an interview. My resume should represent that I'm confident as a developer because I am. There are things I can do now that I couldn't do 2 years ago. So I worked with her on how I could fix this resume to better accurately represent my skill set. And after I did that, started submitting those. I had 40 job interviews in 30 days. It
Say that
was
again.
a
Say that
lot to
again.
keep up with.
um, I want to say a few things because you were kind enough to mention her in your document. The
Yes.
career coach is Stephanie Ramos.
Stephanie Ramos
Stephanie
is amazing.
is fantastic. Short story about Stephanie. She actually was a student first. She graduated, I think, 2 years ago, got her first job. I can't remember her first job, but I do know what her second job as a software engineer is. She works at Pixar right now as a software engineer. And she's been with us. I don't know if Stephanie is listening right now, but thank you for everything you're doing, Stephanie, to help graduates with in their job search. So you also shared with me the before after picture of your resume, and so if you don't mind, I'd love to be able to share that.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
let's look at it. All right, I'm pulling. So this is the before picture. Do you mind if we go through it a little bit, not like my line, but pretty much showing what you're talking about, right? So
Yes.
it's 2 pages, and you do have here a section
Ma-
about,
Can you zoom it in maybe,
oh yeah, let's
Ludo?
do it. Yeah, is it not?
Thank
There
you.
you go.
There we
Perfect.
go. Yeah, thank you.
Um, I mean, what were your skills? But then quickly, when you go into the second page where you talk about your experience, it's all about your teaching experience, right? And so I think
Yes.
that's the point. And what you had to address is if you actually go beyond the first page, the second is all about, you before becoming a web developer. Um, Now let's look. And you want to say a few things about this version? Anything else that
Yes.
you wanted to add? Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I actually came to this design based on some Google searches and things that I just kind of cobbled together some ideas from the internet. I
Yeah,
didn't have a person looking at it and giving me pointed advice. I didn't have somebody who actually was successful telling me what to do. So even though, I tried here, where it counts the most is where you need to have accurate feedback.
yeah. I want to pause here. If anyone has any questions for Seth, you can ask them in the chat on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. There's a chat window somewhere. I'm sure you can find it. You can also join if you want. You can join url.nucamp.co/dial-in and have a conversation with Seth and I live, microphone and camera on, and we can have a conversation together. All right, so that's the first version of your resume. Let's look at it again real
I'll
quick.
point out too, I'll
Yeah,
point out too in the at the very top. I would notice this from before and after. In my goals, I said I'm a voracious learner,
yeah,
an inventive educator,
yeah.
seeking a new career as a web developer. So right now I read that and I go, oh no,
Yeah.
that's terrible. That's a red flag. It's right away. Hey, I have no experience, but I'd sure like some. That's not a
Yeah.
good strategy.
Yeah. That's a good point. I didn't want to mention that, but you're yeah, spot on. All right. So now let's look at the after.
Yeah, I
I
went down
love
to a
this
single
template.
page.
Yeah, down to a single page. But in a way, it's interesting. It's so much denser
Hmm.
that it feels, I mean, it shows more experience, more knowledge. Um, and of course, I mean, can you walk us through, if you don't mind, this
Yes,
version and how different it is from the previous one?
absolutely. And if you don't, I don't know if you can zoom in just a little bit more. That would
Yeah,
help me.
at the
Thank you
top.
so
You want to start at the
much.
top?
Yeah, yeah. Let's start at the top. So now, instead of saying I'm hoping to land a career in web development, now I have my name, Seth Faerber, full stack web developer.
Yeah.
Okay, as I am, I am, and that's the thing. When you graduate from boot camp, you've been developing. You've way more of a developer than you were before the boot camp. So this is my mentality shift, and yeah, there's imposter syndrome, but honestly, working with the guys I work with, nobody knows. Again, it's like nobody knows everything. If you're the
Mhm.
type of person who can find an answer, then that's what you're going on. So I said full stack web developer. I am a servant leader, a learner, and a teacher seeking to make a positive impact in the world through efficient code.
I love this because it really shows how well. First, it's you. It really represents you fully. You have that teacher experience in there, learner and teacher, and it shows you're ready to make an impact with code. Like you know how to do it. You can do it. You've done it
Mhm.
before in a way. So that's I love that that headline.
Absolutely. You'll notice that I put experience right up front,
Yeah.
and I put my experience into two categories. Instead of saying my experience is teaching, I said
Yeah.
my experience breaks into my web development experience and then my teaching experience.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, a really important step. You can see there I put web development 2019 to current. I did not put professional experience because I don't have any professional experience, so I don't want to lie.
Mhm.
And I'll go through kind of the impact with recruiters when you hear, and how do you talk about this? Because that's the question I get from people a lot. Is like, well, are you lying? I mean, what are you going to tell a recruiter when they find out? And we'll definitely talk about that here in a minute.
You know what? Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I would love to talk about that in a minute. But yeah, continue.
Yeah. So I was going to say what I did is I put any projects that I had worked on for myself. I didn't want to put the new campsite project there because I didn't own any of that process really. So I had a open art, which we saw earlier, is the one project I worked on, the art searching site.
Mhm.
This NHL team info project was actually one that I did. It was sort of like a code test for a job, and I was so proud of my work doing that I just put it on my resume. It's like, sure, it's going on the resume, uh, and and it's sort of like I went into this thinking, well, what do I have to say about myself as far as coding? I don't have much to say. I don't have much I've done. I haven't been all this, but I thought, I could talk about these projects. I could
Yeah.
talk about the technologies I used, the challenges I ran into, the solution I came up with, and the plans I have for them for the future. And I think that really showed employers, and it gave me a framework to repeat this in my interviews with employers to show them that I do take myself seriously and I do take my work seriously. Hey, the app isn't done. It's not a full stack app. It's not running on Android, but it's responsive and it works with an API. And I worked hard on it. So I'm going to talk about what I did and my victories and the challenges I faced and how I overcame them. So I'm offering the employer some assurances that I'm confident in my ability to figure things out.
So when in an interview someone will ask you, tell us about yourself, how quickly do you dive into this then? Like, and how long do you stay talking about open heart? How long do you stay talking about NHL team info?
So typically, what I ran into is I would get an interview with the recruiter. They would ask for like a 15-minute or half an hour, just depending. Usually it's a 15-minute interview just to touch base with me and see if they could pass me on to the development team. And really what I think they want to do, if there are any recruiters here, you can help me out. But I think what they were trying to do is make sure that you're not a total flake, that you're
Yeah.
not just, you know,
Yeah. Well,
because a
15
lot of,
minutes. Yeah, that's that. I mean, for 15 minutes, that's just the binary check they want to do, probably.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So the recruiters are not technically skilled, so they don't know exactly how to judge the code, right?
Mhm.
I tracked hits to my GitHub page during this whole process,
Yeah.
and very surprising, I had almost no traffic to my GitHub page,
Yeah.
which was really surprising to me because I spent a lot of time getting it nice and pretty. but what's interesting is that recruiters, they have a ton to do. Yeah, this is my GitHub
Yeah. I'm
page.
showing your GitHub page at the same time. Simple change in a way, but it does make a difference. An immediate, like half a second, I'm looking at that GitHub page after seeing hundreds of other GitHub page, and I'm like, huh, Seth, interesting. You know, just I mean, the UI of it is just different
Yeah.
and interesting. So I mean, I would recommend that to anyone as well. But let's go back
And that's
to
not hard to do. Yeah, that is
no.
not hard
I
to
was
do on
gonna
your
say,
GitHub page, actually. If you look at your username / README file,
yeah,
you can, it's called Markdown. You can just, it's like basic HTML. You can just put all that stuff in there. It's pretty simple. So when I would get an interview, they really wanted to hear your story. Like that's where I said, okay, I just need to land my story with them, and I need to tell them. I say, I've been building websites for a couple of years now, which is true. I had built WordPress sites before this. So I said I build WordPress sites for customers, and I did have paying customers for some of those websites. So I'd say I built a couple websites, really loved it. I've been teaching also, and really studying and getting my coding skills up to par. Open art was a project I worked on. This, and I would talk about my projects, and
mhm,
then inevitably they're going to ask, "So, is this professional experience, or what company did you work for?"
yeah,
And you expect that question. You have to have an answer for it. And my answer was always, it's always answer in the positive. You always want to, it's positive. So I would say, well, I don't have any professional experience, but I have been developing for about a year, building a lot of projects. And I think my role at your company would be my first professional experience. That's what I'm hoping to talk about today.
that's great.
So,
So let's have that that short conversation around being truthful and feeling good about what you're saying, and that the fact that what you're saying is not a lie. What you just described is, in my mind, the best way to present yourself as a junior web developer that is seeking the first job. There's other uh, approaches that are not as honest as this one. One of which is to claim that you're working at a fake company.
yeah.
And as you just shared with us, you're going to be caught deeper and deeper having to lie about that. If you're putting on your resume that instead of being a learning experience or project experience, it's a professional experience, and then you put the name of a company that did not employ you, wasn't a real company, you're going to first have to lie by answering the question you just said. Hey, was it a professional experience? Which company? You're going to lie there. You're going to be okay. That's just one lie. What's going to happen next? And we had a conversation last week with Brad. What's going to happen next is they're going to do, let's say you're actually becoming successful. They like you. They want to hire you. They're going to go through a verification of employment phase.
Mhm.
They're going to actually ask you potentially to write down in their own HR form what your previous employers were. And Brad said last week, that's when actually your lie becomes a legal lie. Because you can say whatever you want on your resume, but if you actually tell your potentially future employer in their own forms and you lie there, that becomes a legal liability. And then, as I said, they may actually, if you're actually that close to getting the job, they're going to do an employment verification. And now your fake company is going to probably not verify the employment. And you're going to have a very hard conversation with the person who was almost ready to hire you, explain why you actually lied for the last 10 days. So follow, I mean, I wish everyone would follow your path, Seth, of don't sell yourself short. There is no point in you doing that. But don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to regret, going too far in painting a situation that wasn't the reality. So that's, and I don't know if you, I mean, do you want to say anything? Do you have anything else that you want to add on this front?
Yes, I would like to just yeah, I mean, I don't want to inaccurately represent myself. So what is the truth? Like the truth is I am a web developer. I'm not a professional web developer. I don't have professional experience, but the strategy here is that you want to get with the development team. You want to get to them because they're the ones who can judge whether you're going to be good for the job or not.
Yeah.
This 15-minute interview with the recruiter, they're just making sure that you're a good person. Honestly, they just want to make sure you're not a total flake, and they want to have somebody that they can. There were a couple times where they said, "Well, I don't really know. They really want someone who has 4 years experience, but I really like you. I'm going to go ahead and just give it to the dev team and let them decide."
Yeah.
And that's if I could cover one quick, I think a very important point here too is that you need to let them count you out. You need to let them be the ones to tell you no. You need to let these prospective employers be the ones to turn you down. Don't turn yourself down from any position. I got in a routine of applying for about 200 jobs a week. 180 of those were on LinkedIn Easy Apply, which I think you can do with the paid account. And honestly, it was just searching JavaScript developer and click apply. And some of those were for senior dev roles. I actually got a job offer from an application for a senior dev role. Now they were like, you can't be a senior dev. In fact, my current role I got by applying to a totally different company for a totally different role. And I met up with this company along the way. They have a relationship, these two companies. They met up with them along the way and they said, well, you're not qualified for that role you applied with them, but why don't you come work for us and we'll put you in at this level. So you need to open your mind and just say, hey, look, I may not know the language. I may not have the experience, but I'm a safe bet for some company.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let them tell me where I fit. So apply for everything and anything you can is my advice. Let them be the ones to tell you no.
No, that's great advice. And I want to, actually, that went super fast. We're almost 7 minutes away from the end of the stream, but you got 4 or 6 offer. You said 4 offer and 2 in process. That's what I saw.
Yep. Yeah, I had 2 kind of.
You went from, applying, not really working, to a different resume. I don't think I'm crisp on the camera anymore.
A little out of
Sometimes
focus.
It does that. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Oops. All right. So tell us, and thank you again for putting that together for me. You had 4 offers. Do you remember them by memory? Do you have them in memory? Like, could you describe to us each one of them and how? What was very interesting when I saw that was how different they each were. And so tell us about those 4 offers and tell us about how you got those offers, and then what made you actually, you kind of hinted at that just earlier, but how did you land on the one that you are right now? And I don't know why I'm blurry like that. Go for it.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the first offer I got was for a junior blockchain developer. I didn't know anything about blockchain, but it was one of those that I applied for. I was like, hey, I'll apply for it. And it was a LinkedIn quick apply. In fact, I don't even think I recognized the company when they contacted me. I was like, oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's a challenge, right? You apply to so many, you don't know actually who you've already answered email. I want to fix that blurry. I'm sorry. Let me see.
Sure, you're fine.
I'm fine.
So
Okay, good.
with that company, I spent a couple of days um, looking at their company, what they do, and trying to understand how I could be a part of it. What was something about that company that made me excited? Uh, and I just put that into every interview I did with them. They really liked me, but they offered me something on site originally, and I would have had to move.
I
Um,
see.
I will say three of those four offers were on-site offers, and two of them I couldn't relocate, and this one I am. So I would point you guys. You might have a lot more success
Yeah.
taking an on-site if you can do an on-site job. But that was really interesting. Uh,
Let me do this real quick.
sure,
I'm going dark, but I'm still here.
go dark.
I'm getting tips from the audience. There we go. Yes.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Not
That's
blurry
amazing.
anymore. All right. Sorry. So yeah, blockchain. Oh boy, I would love to work in the blockchain space.
Mhm.
Although it was better, last year when there was a big frenzy around it. I don't know
Yeah.
nowadays, but Ethereum just upgraded their blockchain,
Mm.
and it's going to be big. I mean, I'm predicting that in the next 10 years, uh, Visa is going to go down just like Blockbuster went down because of
Wow.
blockchains like Ethereum.
Wow.
Um, it's gonna be a really interesting space to watch and to be part of. But that being said, yeah, on site,
Yep.
that's where everybody should start, right? I mean, you
Mhm.
look at your surroundings. Everybody's looking for a software engineer of sorts, and if you can actually walk into the office and say, "Hey, can I talk to the hiring manager?"
Yep.
That's going to be a big deal.
Yep. Yep. You
So that
gotta
was
show
the
them
very
you're a
first
safe
one.
bet.
Um, I know you had a junior web dev on a 6 months contract for not a lot of money, but can you tell us a little bit more about this one?
Yeah, that was one where I actually applied for a senior role because I liked the company. I was
Yeah.
passionate to work for this company as a nonprofit I was really interested in, and I applied for it, and they contacted me back, and we got about 2 or 3 interviews in. I said, like, "Now I know this is a senior role. Are you guys interviewing me for a senior role? 'Cause what's going on here?" They said, "No." They said, "We don't actually have a senior role." And they said, "The truth is we don't have a role, but we really, really like you." And
Oh,
they said,
wow.
yeah, and they said, "What we can do," and they put together a package for me. They were really gracious. They said, "Look, like, we don't really have the funds right now. We don't really have the structure right now, but
Mhm.
we'd be willing to offer you a 6-month contract just to get you on board, called dibs, basically."
Yeah.
And I thought that was really sweet. I couldn't take it because it just wasn't the right fit for me at the time, but it was really great. And that kind of thing will happen, if you're open to it. Um, that was really interesting. I
That's
also got
great.
a job offer with a military contractor, and that one also was an on-site. And I actually found that one because I had posted my resume on dice.com,
Yeah.
and Dice basically makes you searchable to employers. And uh, recruiter reached out to me and said, "Hey, like, I see you have a unique background. I believe you could be a good fit." And so started the interview process, and it was great. And that recruiter was fantastic. She was very helpful. Ultimately, it didn't work out for our family, but it was still a great thing, and they're a great company.
So
And
would
then
you
finally,
recommend Dice? Would you recommend dice.com?
I would say so. I mean, that's really the only traction I got. It's worth putting it out there. You know,
Yeah.
it's worth putting it out there.
And Krista is saying that there's actually a huge need um, from military contractors. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yep.
You have to meet certain criteria, right? Like I know I couldn't work for military contractors. I'm not a U.S. citizen just yet. And do you have to be a born native a naturally
Naturalized.
born citizen?
I think it depends. It depends on the contract. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that may be that. So that's the amazing bits, and
Yeah.
we're actually going to be late now. Um,
Yeah.
4 offers after tweaking your resume, tweaking your approach,
Hmm.
really being confident not just about your tech skills, but being confident about how to present yourself and how to talk about yourself.
That's right.
Uh, but still, I mean, applying like crazy, but also being more. And I know you wrote that you were applying like crazy, but also being a bit more strategic in
Yes.
finding the companies you wanted to reach out to, maybe doing more research on them.
Yes.
I mean, a nonprofit that you are really interested in.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's amazing, the shift, right? And how suddenly you got those 4 opportunities. How did you decide? How did you land on the one you are right now?
Well, a couple of those offers I couldn't take because the relocation just ended up not being possible.
Mhm.
The one I accepted here was great. It actually came about because it was another nonprofit I was passionate about. They were running a tech school, a coding boot camp, basically. And so I applied with them. They had a role that would be an instructor at a coding boot camp, and I
Oh,
thought,
yes.
sure, why not? And they have a very close partnership with Ramsey Solutions. So they said, why don't you go
Oh,
down and interview at Ramsey Solutions and see if they like you for this role at our company? And in the interview process, they said, you're not strong enough to be an instructor with us, but we have this program that is basically taking you from a dev point 8 to a dev 2.0. So they say, a lot of boot camp grads, you're the right person for the job, but
yeah.
you still need some attendance, right? You still need some learning that you have to do in a big enterprise, huge app like we run. And so it's great. I came on board with them. I took this role because I really wanted to help people. I wanted my coding work to matter. And this is a place where you're building tools that help people get out of debt, help people be smarter with their money, help them gain financial mastery over their lives, and bring them hope. So I'm contributing to something like that every day. I'm with a lot of people who are united in that vision, and it's a blessing.
Wow, that's huge. That's very inspiring, Seth. It's actually a great way to end this stream. I was going to ask you any parting thoughts, but well, yeah. I mean, that was being able to live not only your passion, but the meaning that you want to give your life. That's quite significant. And doing that as you're transitioning to a new career, and being able to stay close to your family. I mean, I'm sure that brought a lot of joy and satisfaction to you and your family. I'll still ask you any parting thoughts for the audience that's been listening to your journey, and thinking about, okay, am I going to be able to follow your footsteps? Am I going to be able to experience the same joy and benefits that they wish they can achieve by learning to code and changing careers?
Sure. I would definitely say that you're never going to know enough to feel like you know everything or feel
Mhm.
like you know enough. So get over that as fast as you can and just find inside of you what it is that makes you great for the role that you want. For me, it was knowing that I could teach myself anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might take me longer than some people, whatever, but I'm going to figure it out.
Mhm.
And being able to say that confidently to someone and say, here's the evidence, here's the proof. Here's my project that I worked on that I just taught myself. So stay encouraged with that. And I would tell you too that work hard at finding a job. It pretty much it took up a lot of time.
It's another
Uh,
coding boot camp. I mean, it's
it
another
is.
2-3 hours a day. It's a commitment. It's another
It is.
significant commitment. Definitely.
It is. Don't
Yeah.
be picky about what you apply for because
Yeah.
you can't predict what can come of your application. Like I said, I'm working at a company I didn't even apply for. So
Yeah.
in a language I
and
don't even know.
and a testimonial of the fact that your work matters in that company. Uh, Alan just shared with us that Dave Ramsey helped her or he, I don't know actually, a lot in early 20s. So,
Oh, that's
all right,
great.
yeah. All right, hey Seth, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Really appreciate. Everyone, Seth is on Slack if you want to ask him question, on LinkedIn as well. It was great to have this conversation with you. I wish everyone a great weekend, and we'll talk soon. See ya.
Thank you.